back. Hope you had a good spring break. We are now 50% of the way through the semester. Okay. So that means 5/6 of the way through the school year. You've got 1/6 remaining and you're done, right? So that's exciting. Um, I hope you had a good break. I hope you were able to spend some time, quality time with friends and family. How many of you guys traveled? Anybody travel? Anybody go anywhere fun? Where'd you go? No. Weren't you raising your hand? But not fun. Who else went somewhere? Nobody? Went to Oregon. All right. Just right down there, 15 minutes away. All right, 20 minutes away. Huh? Texas. All right, all right. That's you might have gotten the long distance award there, Lauren. Good job. Okay. I hope you had a good break. And again, 50% of the way through, so we're on the downhill side now, starting today. So congratulations to that. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. And our learning target this week is I and we will learn and apply basic cake baking and decorating skills. So we are making red velvet cupcakes this week. So the reason why we do a cupcake instead of a full size cake is right. The bake time on a full size cake is a problem. So we have to do a miniaturized cake lesson. So we do cupcakes. So we're doing red velvet cupcake with cream cheese frosting. This will be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday competency, and I hope that you've got everything frosted on Thursday. You can also finish frosting if somebody's absent on Thursday. You could finish frosting on Friday and still eat the cupcakes if you package them up right. Okay. We got one unit to do in Ruby, just unit number 8. Some of you have already gone ahead and completed that. Good job. And let me give you a quick overview on cake. So we're going to talk for a couple minutes. Go ahead and close our Chromebooks, please. Okay. Um, I'm going to give you a quick overview on cakes, quick video. All right. And then I'm going to give you time to complete unit 8, just as we always do. And then we'll begin the lab tomorrow. So cake, right, is a form of sweet, finished item typically served at the end of the meal. Back in the day, it was Carême and a number of other chefs back in sort of the mid 16 and 1700s that started to sort of play with ingredients and sort of discover this sweet confection. So it's a combination of flour, sugar, and other ingredients that's typically obviously baked in the oven. Okay. Oldest forms of cakes were modifications of bread, and that was where the discovery took place. And that different outcome of consistency, and then the leveraging of what eventually became chemical leavening agents, baking soda and baking powder, to get what we know as a cake today. Okay. They cover a wide range of preparations. They can be small, like cupcakes, round cakes, square cakes, layered cakes, sheet cakes, and obviously flavors, filling, layers, and frosting finish, whether it be a buttercream to a royal icing to a rolled fondant, a lot of different types of outcomes for cakes. Okay, you can see some classical pictures here. Anybody know what this cake is in the center? It's a German chocolate cake, right? It has that coconut frosting, coconut sort of fudgy frosting on the top. You got some traditional seasonal cupcakes on the right, and this is a very much more classic. You're going to find this. Anybody ever been to La Provence? Yeah, so a good bakery. Probably, in my opinion, they do their production down in Gresham, is where their warehouse production is done, and then they ship everything to their stores in Portland and the one store in Vancouver. I find La Provence to be probably the premium baked goods. Anybody been to Blue Door Bakery in Vancouver? Okay, another good bakery. There's a lot of good niche bakeries throughout town. There's a new Ukrainian bakery in downtown Vancouver as well. A lot of different options out there for tasting good cake. Okay, so some tips and tricks. Go ahead and pay attention to the closest.
Hi guys, it's Sav. In this quick tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to make the perfect sponge cake. I get a lot of inquiries about this cake. This is one of my absolute favorite recipes. If you can master this recipe, it is really, really delicious. I'm going to show you guys really great tips, how to get it out of the pan, what types of pan to use, and all that jazz. So keep watching and I'm going to show you guys my tips and tricks on how to make the perfect sponge cake. Tip number one, when to stop whipping your egg whites. Stop whipping if you can tip your bowl completely to the side and none of your egg whites move. It's nice and stiff and it stays put. Tip number two, use a pan with a removable bottom. Using this type of pan or like a cheesecake pan will be easier to remove your cake because you can just literally take your hand in the bottom and push your cake up out of the pan and it's nice and smooth and perfect every time. And I recommend the cake pan by Fat Daddy-O's. Tip number three, don't scrape the bowl. Okay, so I know you're thinking you just mixed your batter, you're pouring it nicely into your ungreased cheesecake pans, and you want to scrape the bowl. Wrong. Do not scrape your bowl. If you do that, what'll happen is you'll end up with pieces of egg yolk that hasn't been mixed in properly, so it'll sink to the very bottom, and then you'll end up with hard pieces of egg yolk throughout your cake, or more like to the bottom because it sinks to the bottom, and it doesn't bake off very well. So just let gravity do its thing, tip the bowl upside down, and get what you can out just by tapping the mixing bowl. Tip number four, how to remove the cake from the pan. So first I took the cakes out and I'm inverting it upside down, letting it cool down completely. And now that it's cooled down, I am going to take a plastic knife. You want to use plastic because you don't want to scrape your cake pans, and just go right around the edges softly and gently. And then once you go around the edges completely, all you gotta do is take your hand right underneath the cake pan and just slip it through, and it is just a piece of cake and it comes out perfectly every time. And just the same steps as before, take your plastic knife and just run it right along the bottom to remove it from the bottom portion. And I'm using a cake lifter, but if you don't have that, you can use anything flat like a spatula to remove the cake from the bottom. And here are just some extra tips. You could take a cake pan, flip it upside down if you don't have a turntable, and use it like one. Place your cake on top and just begin to frost it that way. But first, I will show you how to create the layers. I have a Wilton cake leveler here. The blade is really dull, so you have to do a two-step process. You want to make your initial kind of marking using the Wilton leveler, put it aside, and then take a sharp knife and make a deeper cut. And then you want to bring the leveler back, and now you can go completely through the cake. If you don't do a two-step process for the cake, you probably will have a hard time using this leveler because, again, the blade is really dull. So doing it this way, this actually works better. Then just grab your trusty cake board and get your cake lifter or spatula, whatever you're using, and just gently lift up. And here are your two layers. Just repeat with the other cake. Now I'm going to show you guys how to keep your cakes put. So I have a cake turntable here. Earlier I showed you how to turn a cake pan into your own little turntable. So now I'm going to add some pieces of Scotch tape to the bottom of my cake board. And you want to do this is basically so that your cake board doesn't slide around while you're frosting, because well, obviously that'll be just a disaster if that happens. Push it down gently. Now obviously don't use like a heavy duty tape. You want to be able to lift the cake board off when you're done. Next, you need to add parchment strips right along the outer edges of your cake board. This is so that when you apply the crumb coat, it's cleaner and your frosting doesn't get all over the place. Just make sure you remove the parchment strips after your crumb coat has hardened before you do your final decorations. Smear a dollop of buttercream onto the middle of your cake board and then place your first cake layer directly on top. Doing this will hold your cake in place. I lost some footage, so I'll start with my second layer. I took one of my cake layers here and then I added some buttercream, spread it all the way out to the outer edges if you can, and then go ahead and add your chunks of fruit. I use strawberries here, and then just repeat the process. I'm going to speed it up to kind of make it quicker. Now I'm using my Italian meringue buttercream for this recipe, and I'll post a link up above. Now next is the crumb coat. Very easy. Put a ton of frosting at the top, and then using an offset spatula, just spread it out all the way out to the outer edges again. And then just do the sides. Same thing. You want to use a back and forth sweeping motion. And make sure to wipe off the excess buttercream as you go along as well. So to do the sides, you need to hold your spatula at a vertical angle and go left and right using that sweeping motion to get your buttercream nice and even. And again, make sure you always wipe off the excess buttercream to start fresh. It just makes a cleaner and more smoother crumb coat. So I slowed this back down to show you guys how to clean this all up. Take the back of your offset spatula and work around the cake. Your turntable will do most of the work for you. So just keep turning the turntable and keeping your spatula still and just keep going along until it's nice and smooth. Finally, you can smooth out the top. This is very easy. Start off at the outer edges, and all you gotta do is work your way towards the middle of the cake with one single sweep, and always, always wipe off the excess buttercream before you start each new sweep. Outside, work your way inside, wipe off the excess, and just repeat until it's nice and smooth. Place your cake in the fridge and allow the crumb coat to harden. Thanks for watching.
All right, some simple
Hi
to-dos.
guys. Hi guys.
Okay, best practices, always read the recipe, right? Just like in any situation, read the recipe in advance. This is more of a production process because you're mise en placing, you're baking the cake, you're cooling the cake. You want to frost it when it's warm, and then you're going to go ahead and decorate the cake. Which typically, in this cake, we're just doing a frosting on top. But typically, when you're doing a full mask coating, you're going to then refrigerate it again and get that mask coating done. Pull it back out, and then do your final frosting. And maybe you have some rough-in bag work. You're doing rosettes or flowers or whatever for the top. So it is a process when you get into cake baking. You want to make sure you preheat the oven. Ingredients are going to be more homogeneous and integrated and maintain a better emulsion in your batter if you go ahead and bring everything to room temperature. Okay. Precision, as I've always said, in managing your measuring, okay, through the mise en place process. Use the correct size for the recipe in terms of the pan. You don't want to just switch the pan up without that consideration that you might end up decreasing the height of your cake or increasing the height of your cake and overfilling the pan during the baking process. Pan preparation is important. You typically will take a paste that's called adobe, which is a flour butter combination, and rub it on the pan. Or you'll rub the pan with butter, put flour in, and then shake the excess out. You want to make sure that you leverage aeration during the preparation process. So she mentioned the whipping of your egg whites, or sometimes you might even have heavy cream in the frosting. As you whip it, you want to leverage that aeration as much as possible to get the right consistency of either the cake, finished product, or the frosting. Don't open the oven during the baking process, whether cake or cupcake. It's important to let that get through, let the protein set, and let it finish getting to its maximum rise and setting. Okay, check the degree of doneness. Typically, a paring knife right in the center is fine. Okay, or a skewer or a toothpick or something like that in the center, just checking that it comes out clean. And then I find that cake decorating in particular, I don't have pictures here of cakes that I've done. I used to do some cake decorating, but the biggest ingredient that I struggle with in life that cake decorating requires is patience. And it is just as slow, especially when you do meticulous string work and frosting work that is detailed in nature. It requires a lot of patience. Okay, so this is what we're preparing this week. So I'll walk you through this with this video, and then we'll move on to Ruby Unit 8.
Hey bakers, today we're making one of my favorite treats ever, red velvet cupcakes. They are so tender, fluffy, moist, and dreamy. Your eyes will just pop out of your head and like, what is this? This is so delicious. Maybe not, but they're really good. And they're topped with this cloud of cream cheese frosting that's perfectly tangy, just sweet, and so easy to make. Let's get started. I'm sifting all the dry ingredients, starting off with 1 2/3 cups or 213 grams of all-purpose flour into the bowl of my standing mixer. 213 grams of flour. There we go. Okay, that was easy. 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda.
So one thing to make mention of is it's important if your recipe calls for, say, 18 ounces of sifted flour. That means you're sifting the flour until you get to 18 ounces, right? So whereas it calls for 18 ounces of flour sifted, that means you sift it after you measure 18 ounces. So it will change the outcome of the recipe. So make sure you understand that when you read the recipe.
And a full teaspoon of baking powder, a quarter teaspoon of kosher salt. And because this is a red velvet, there will be 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder. A red velvet cake is actually the cocoa powder you use reacting with the buttermilk. It creates this pink color. It's like very dusty chocolate pink. That's not the case anymore. Most people don't want to see that. Some people don't even want to put any cocoa powder in their cake, but for me, I feel like it needs it. Sift, 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 sift. And because this is a cake, let's not forget 1 full cup or 200 grams of sugar. I forget the sugar so often. Okay, now let's whisk it together. I'm done with my scale. I'm gonna put this aside for a moment. Now for the wet ingredients, 3 whole eggs. 1, 2, and 3. Room temperature if you can, please. 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk at home, that's fine. Use regular whole milk and add like a little bit less than a tablespoon of white vinegar or even lemon juice. Set it aside, let it curdle. It'll have a similar buttermilky taste and feel. The buttermilk has more acid in it and it will react with the sodium bicarbonate and make things a little puffier. Okay, let's whisk this together first just to get this going. A couple tablespoons of vanilla extract. And now, for the red food coloring, I am in America. I will be using some super red Americolor food gel paste. Will 1 drop work? No. 2? 3. Let's see. There we go, a nice realistic looking red color. Perfect. So now back to the dry mixture, and let's get to reverse creaming. So right now I have 3/4 of a cup or about 190 grams of unsalted butter at room temperature, and you want this to be yielding to the touch but not melty, if that makes sense. Just cut it into like kind of tablespoon-sized dollops. You can actually just use your fingers. And just distribute them in that fluffy, cloudy, chocolatey mixture. You don't want one giant clump of butter going into the mixer because that'll just take longer to break apart. Fingers are getting very moisturized. This definitely reminds me of making pastry, but the end result is so different. Now that our butter is in there, we're going to mix this on low, and you're gonna end up with like a crummy, crumbly mixture. On low, just let it mix. It'll work itself out. You can increase the speed to like medium-low after a few seconds. And the butter's getting all broken up right now, tinier and tinier pieces. You're gonna end up with like a sandy, like a wet sandy mixture almost. All that flour is getting coated with the fat from the butter. That's gonna prevent it from being really bready and tough. It's gonna keep it nice and tender. All right, let's take a look. I wanna show you what this is like. Look at this mixture. It smells so good. And you can see it's like wet sand almost. Back to our wet mixture, we're gonna add in about half of it, let it mix for 1.5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, and it's gonna get nice and smooth. Don't add it all in at once because it's not going to mix up properly. Mix it on medium, walk away, take a phone call, do your nails, whatever. No one can do their nails in 1.5 minutes. That was wrong. Okay, let's take a look. This looks really great. It's fluffed up a lot. It's nice and airy. However, I don't know. Even with that food coloring in, I'm not sure it's going to be the right color, so we might have to add a little bit more. Just warning you ahead of time. Okay, now let's add in half of the half, or 1/4 of the wet mixture. So another half, and then mix it up for like 30 seconds. On low. On low. Now to medium. the rest of the mixture in. Don't be afraid to scrape that bowl down. I will be adding more food coloring in. Don't judge me. This is optional. All right, I am satisfied with that color, and let's get this into our cupcake papers right now. I'm using an ice cream scoop just to plop this batter into my prepared pan. Let's bake it at 350 for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Keep an eye on it. Kind of depends on how hot your oven is. You could also switch this around halfway through so that you get a nice even bake and nothing is, a little bit burnt in the back. Keep an eye on it. While those cupcakes are in the oven, let's whip up a giant batch of cream cheese frosting. It's one of my favorite things to eat, and it is delicious. First off, we're gonna sift 1.5 pounds of confectioner sugar. You don't have to sift the sugar, but it's a good practice to have. So let's sift it out, and using a scale helps. You don't have to sift it all at once though. You can do it in batches. So sift, sift, sift. It's also good to get the lumps out ahead of time because if you're going to try and mix and mix and mix, cheese-based frostings like mascarpone frosting and cream cheese frosting can theoretically be overwhipped. More for mascarpone frosting, which is delicious, but you don't want to overwhip things. Cloudy with a chance of sugar. Now we're going to set this sugar aside, come back to it in a few minutes, put your scale away too, and we're going to cream our butter, 3 sticks, into the bowl of your stand mixer. This makes a big batch, so don't see all the butter and panic. So let's add that on there, cream it up. All right, so my butter is nice and creamy. Room temperature butter should yield to the touch. When you press down, it shouldn't be hard, but it shouldn't be melty either. It's in between. Nice pinch of salt, and we're gonna add in 16 ounces of cream cheese. If you don't have cream cheese, I question why you're watching this video, but you could also use Neufchâtel cheese, which is very similar, or you could use mascarpone as well. It's like a cross between cream cheese and heavy whipping cream. I would almost describe it as like cream made solid. I'm gonna cream this up now, mix it with that butter well. And I'm gonna add in a teaspoon of vanilla. Always a nice idea. And why do I put away an empty bottle of vanilla? Okay, this one's empty too. And I'm gonna open a giant new vanilla. This is Nielsen Massey. It's a very good brand. There are many good brands though, so if you're getting Rodell, that's nice too. Just go for the real stuff. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, please. There we go. Thank you. Cream it up, let it get well combined. And scrape that bowl down too. This tastes delicious already, and I'm not above eating it. Why is cream cheese so good? All right, that's all mixed up, and I'm just gonna add in like a cup or so of sugar at a time and let it incorporate. You know what? Okay. Once that's incorporated, add the rest, or another batch. Look at this. Let's just take a taste. You might notice though, it is very, it's runny. It's a runny mixture, so we have to add a little bit more sugar in to firm it up. And we're gonna mix it in. Okay, let's check this out. Fresh spoon, a little bit wider, and you can see it's holding a peak more, so this is much more pipeable. That extra sugar made a big difference. Oh my God. I might add in a little blessing of salt. Call that a day. That's delicious. My red velvet cupcakes are out of the oven and just cool enough to touch. They're still warm. I want to talk to you about the color. Look at this. This is a red velvet cupcake. If you want it to have, they smell really good. Oh my gosh. If you wanted to have more of a chocolatey flavor, just add in like a tablespoon of cocoa powder, or whatever you want. You could add in 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder, even 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and you can dial down the red for sure. This is one I made yesterday, and I used more cocoa powder and less red food coloring in it. Still looks, to me, this looks reddish, but I feel for the sake of photography, we're gonna go with the more food coloring one. You also want to have like 1 cupcake, and you can really load up on the red food coloring if you want for that 1 cupcake to stir it directly into the cupcake batter. We're gonna use a cheese grater and grate this out so that we have nice crumbs to sprinkle around. Those crumbs will give us like a little bit of extra fun visual cues saying, hey, this is a red velvet cupcake. Eat me, I'm delicious. Anyways, we have some crumbs. We're gonna use these at the very end. Setting them aside. I baked these cupcakes in plain old white cupcake wrappers. They're actually my favorite. Don't tell anybody. I like that you can see the color through. But I think they'll look extra cute in decorative cupcake papers like these. You can bake your cupcakes in these papers, but they become a little bit discolored, not necessarily from the butter because they're lined with like some wax stuff, but from the baking. It heats them up and makes them a bit yellow. So my solution is just to pop them right in. There we go. I have my buttercream cream cheese frosting in a piping bag fitted with an 869 tip, an open star, my favorite tip in the world. And we're just gonna give it a nice swoopy dollop. So apply pressure, squeeze, turn, and lift gently. There we go. Whoa. That's what I call a spire. So we have a beautiful cupcake over here. All we need now are some crumbs to sprinkle it on top. What cupcake could this be, I wonder? A red velvet cupcake, that's what. This is so simple to make. I've been snacking, as you saw, and it is delicious, but I will take a formal bite in just a moment. Let's make a few more. It is now time for me to eat the sacrificial cupcake. I don't know if you can see this, but...
All right. So
Hey,
what we're
bakers.
going to be doing is working on Ruby unit number 8. Let's complete that today. We'll mise en place. Tomorrow we'll bake on Wednesday. And a reminder, if you don't already know, Wednesday is a 2-hour late start, not a 1-hour late start. You get an extra hour. We're doing professional learning communities, and they're trying to model something different for the next school year. So rather than doing a 1-hour late start every week, we're going to do an occasional 2-hour late start, I guess. So you can look forward to sleeping in for 2 hours on Wednesday.